All right, y'all, you are listening to Low Hanging Fruit. I am AJ, and that is Guy Fieri. He is joining me from beautiful Tampa Bay, Florida. He was lucky enough to get down near the stadium, right?
Yeah.
Earlier today.
I was out.
So he was right in the mix of all of the good shit that was happening down there. Real quick, you can find us on Twitter at LHF_pod. You can email us at lowhangingfruitpod@gmail. You can find me on Medium at austinjandrews.medium.com. And our podcast is now up on Spotify and 5 other links now, which I will post somewhere at some point. I just got all the emails during the game, so I haven't even looked at it yet. We're coming off a hot win in Tampa. We couldn't wait until tomorrow to do this. So, we wanted to get in while the getting was good. So 2-1 win. 3-1. Fuck, I forgot about the goal at the end too. The dagger with 2 minutes left. I'm still stuck on that Coleman goal. That's all I could think about. So, period one, immediately, we talked about last time how the D-men have been pressing a lot more recently, especially Chernak. A combination of a overly aggressive D rush and a bad line change immediately leads to Vasy having to make a massive save on Nick Suzuki. And we also said the Toffoli, Suzuki, and Caulfield line was non-existent. They were completely shut down last game, and they came out with 9 shots in the first period, and they had 3. The revised stat was 3 shots combined last game. I said 4, but apparently it was 3 on the stat board tonight. So they came out hot. And they didn't really get anything done. First period, it stuck 0-0. Tyler Johnson was flying around. Back in 2015, we played the Habs, and he sunk one on Price with, it was expiring time, and I think the third period to win the game too. So, I don't know if him being bumped up to the second line because of the Killorn injury, gave him a little extra gas, or just being with Cirelli and Stamkos, having to mentally elevate his game again. But even for the first period, he was flying out there.
Yeah.
We did have a power play almost immediately into the game. Did not set up in the zone well at all. It was just pass, and then out of the zone. Never got a few chances there. We ended up finishing the first 13-6 on shots. We had 6 shots in the first period. It was the first time in several games I can remember just off the top of my head that we were outshot in the first period. So there was a 4-on-4. It was a hard high stick by McDonough.
I was gonna say before far into this, before we start the recap, I just want to say downtown Tampa was fun. It feels like a championship city. I know we get a lot of flack for the Rays support, and we get a lot of flack for the Bucks support minus the Brady year. It's definitely a hockey city.
It is, without a doubt. Just even on the TSN coverage that I was streaming on for the first period of the game before I switched over to NBC, when they were showing the outside shots of Amalie with all of the people out there just sitting in rows watching the game, it was a massive turnout. So you can't say that this isn't a hockey city. And we had 19.2 thousand people in attendance inside of the stadium tonight, almost at full capacity.
Yeah,
but that's only because of the CDC stuff, not because there weren't tickets sold. It was completely sold out.
every bar within square miles for which is a decent amount of bars in downtown Tampa, Channel Side, Igor. All of them were full of blue jerseys. Shout out District Tavern. That's where I ended up after I went to the pregame outside of Emily, heard the music. The weather wasn't great, and I had a friend that didn't want to stay. We didn't have chairs, so we ended up going to a bar where we could get drinks at a normal price.
And chairs.
Yeah, and chairs. And it was fun. District Tavern was fun. All the bars were packed. It's a cool time in Tampa. And then also I wanted to say, before we get into like the recap, I had some questions just in general. What did you think about Savard?
Pretty non-existent. And that can either be a good thing or a bad thing, especially with how our defense is supposed to be so offensive minded. He has a couple assists in the playoffs, but otherwise, I don't really notice him when he's out there. Other than he definitely has great stick presence when he's defending in our own zone. But I mean, I didn't see anything that necessarily pissed me off, or at least I missed it. But I also didn't see anything amazing.
That was I didn't notice, and I didn't notice anything bad. I did notice one thing. We had a power play where we were getting a lot of pressure, and he pinched. It was like the end of the power play, so we kind of like cycled on the line.
The one in the first period?
Yeah, it was the end. It was towards the end of the first.
Yeah,
and he pinched, and the puck came around to the blue line, and he was unable to control it, and it wasted like the last 6 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Which we had a lot of pressure for the 40 seconds before that. So
right. And that was the second power play we had in that period, because like I said, the first one we could not get set in the offensive zone at all. So I mean, yeah, we had that 40 seconds of nonstop pressure, and another puck goes wayside on a D-man stick at the blue line. We saw it with Ruda a few times, and now Savard. But I mean, it's going to happen, and getting that stuff out of the way early in the game will always help too. But not noticing him on the ice is a good thing, because that means he's not a liability, realistically. And he was paired up with Sergachev tonight too. So a lot of the attention is going to be on him anyways. So being paired up with Sergey, it's a blessing and a curse in a way. Sergachev loves the puck on his stick, so not all of the attention is going to be on Savard, especially offensively. But I mean, I haven't heard anything bad, haven't seen anything bad, so I'll take it. I don't know if he's necessarily an upgrade from Shen. I think he is defensively, because I've seen Shen turn into a pylon a couple times this season already, but we didn't need Shen's brutal presence on the ice like we needed in the last series against the Islanders. Like tonight, compared to the first game, it was relatively tame right until the end of the third period, where that big storm came in, where I think it was Deneau that took a big run at Sergachev on the boards with like 3 seconds left or something like that, and it caused the whole scrum at the end of the game too. So I mean, I guess I like what I'm seeing from Savard, other than, like you mentioned, the fail pickup at the blue line, which what happens if you hold that puck in, especially with us being down so many shots in the first period, not maintaining pressure in the offensive zone. I mean, I think we need him to keep that puck in there. So I think those things will work themselves out. He's still new to our system in a way. And I think we just expect people to come into Tampa and perform now, and because it's an easy plug-in. I mean, I'm not saying it's an easy system, but you're not, Savard didn't get traded here to become a game breaker. He came in to slot in on the D line when we had injuries. So
Yeah. And then Joseph, I thought Joseph played fine. I do think that we missed Killer.
Big time. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially on the first power play that we had. Not being able to get set, he's a huge part of that. When he holds the puck, it allows everyone else to get positioned. Then he draws a lot of attention towards himself while he's down deep in the boards holding that puck there. So I think Sorelli did a great job filling in for him on the power play itself, but his presence was missed, and it was noticeable to anybody who's seen more than 3 or 4 power plays by the Bolts this season. So, which there have been plenty examples even in the postseason too. So, again, defense getting involved on rushes. Chernak almost had the first goal again. He came in, I think it was like a minute and a half, and just ripped one by Price just wide of the net. And if that puck was on the net, it's just like it was last night with Colton. Like if that puck was on the net, it was in, hands down. So he was getting involved super early, and I would have, I don't know what I would have done if he took the first goal again. I would have freaked out. In the second intermission, or in the first intermission, I'm sorry, I noticed something came across the screen. The Canadians' request to up their attendance from 3,500 to 10,500 was denied by the whatever the Canadian equivalent of the CDC is for games 3 and 4 and 6 if they need to get there. But there will be 3,500 fans in the stands for the rest of the series, is what it sounds like. So the request was denied. I think that will probably still end up playing a factor. If they get, 10,000 fans in there, they can make it sound like a full stadium. That's 3/4 of the way full already. Basically, I think they can seat like 17 or 18,000 in their stadium. So that was, it's going to be a factor, hands down. And we talked about it on the last one, playing a full 60. They didn't play a full 20 minutes in the first period.
No. So, or in general, I thought the Bolts didn't play well. I thought the third period, they kind of really turned it on, but the first 2 periods, I thought they were flat. They were never, it seemed like, first to the 50-50s. The second line, we talked about the second line of Montreal, and the last recap, I said they were absent in game 1, and it's not going to be like that for the rest of the series, and it was not like that.
No, they came out so hot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, overall, there's a lot of things to not like about how the Lightning played, and they are so fortunate that wasn't 2-0 going in to the second period at the least, because Suzuki had an immediate chance from that bad line change, and Vasy bailed us out the entire game. The whole game, he was just on his head. He bailed us out big time. Also, if you hear any groaning noises, that's my sister's dog that's laying next to me. He's a very vocal, moody boy. So, and he just sighed at me. That's nice. But he'll just go in his sleep. So if you hear something, I promise it's not my stomach. Right in the beginning of period 2, Vasilevsky, he's been using his stick a lot more than usual. I noticed that off rip in the first period too. He already has a tendency to play aggressive, to make himself look big to the to whoever has the puck on their stick, but he was so active getting his stick out there. He did it on Suzuki on a breakaway. Suzuki pulled it to his left side to try to put it around his skate, and he just pushed his stick out and knocked it away. He did it again immediately at the beginning of the second period. And then Sergachev has been doing the same exact thing with his stick. He's starting to get his stick right down onto the ice a lot more, rather than trying to use the toe or the heel to block passes. He's putting his whole stick shaft on the ice. He did it twice in the first period and did it once immediately into the second, and it turned into an odd man rush for the Lightning and a shot opportunity. It was the first bolt shot in 13 minutes and 30 seconds was sprung off of the Sergachev defensive play. So I think the Lightning they're gonna habitually go back to this type of play like we've seen them do in the regular season, especially. They're gonna need to take advantage of opportunities like that, and it's gonna have to start in our own zone if we can't set up and make passes and make plays in the O zone for longer than 10 seconds. Right after that, Sorelli got his goal at 6:40. It was one of those weird shots from the blue line, but right before that, this was the longest point that the Lightning were able to possess the puck in the offensive zone. Johnson was a huge piece of that. He was flying around behind the net, eventually got the puck to Ruda back to Sorelli, and then Sorelli with a little wrister from the blue line, it just found its way in. It nicked the defender on the way in, but even at that point, I don't think that made the difference of a goal or not. If that defender, if it didn't hit him, it still was going in the back of the net. It was just an opportune shot and had enough bodies in front of the net where Price couldn't track the shot, and it put us up 1-1. And then it was like a spark plug after that. The Lightning end up needing motivation, and it comes in different forms, whether it's scrums or a weird goal or an early goal to go up. One way or another, they need motivation at some points if they're not coming out of the gate firing on all cylinders. So they just started moving the puck a lot more after that. And then, unfortunately, it's a weak interference call on Sergachev. Yes, the Habs player did not have the puck on his stick, but Sergachev was just stronger than him in that situation. He goes down, and Habs get the call and immediately score a goal on the power play to tie it up. So at that point, 12 minutes into the second period, the shots are 23-8. So, for the game to even be 1-1 at that point is extremely lucky. I have it written down here. I'm not seeing a full 60. So it was evident from period 1. It was evident in period 2. It's just one of those things that they're going to have to rectify if they want to not hang on to Vasy as the only hope for production and to bail them out like that. So there was the power play at the end of period 2. Armia with a high stick sent their best penalty killer into the box, and we couldn't capitalize on that either. Price came out to play the puck with his own stick, banked it off of Kucherov's skate, and it almost found the back of the net too. So there was shaky plays in front of the net and behind the net in the Canadiens D zone all game.
That was going to be a goal.
Yeah, but I mean, it said 0.3 on the clock initially. I think it was like 0.8 seconds, something like that. That was when we saw the Coleman goal. He did it last year against the Bruins when, of all people, Zach Bogosian, who came over for a year from Buffalo, made that insane move. I've never seen Zach Bogosian deke in his entire career, and he put one of the wildest moves I've seen on somebody in the game against the Bruins last year. Passes the puck over to Coleman, and Coleman does the same thing that he did in this game. He dives, put his stick on the puck, and it goes in the back of the net. And then Coleman also did this in college when he played for Miami of Ohio. So he's had 3 diving goals in his career now. So Eric Coleman getting the job done. You fucking love to see it. But I mean, I went wild. I scared the dog. I just couldn't help myself. I jumped up as soon as that puck went in the net. And I looked up at the scoreboard, 0.3 seconds left to go 2-1 going into third.
So at that moment, what is there a terrible echo?
Mm-mm.
Okay. At that moment, after the Coleman goal, we had just watched 19 minutes of mediocre Lightning play.
Mediocre at best.
And it was 1-1. And the Canadians, I thought the Canadians, like, there were some things they didn't do. Like you said, there was some very reckless play out of the back. But as far as, like, in the zone, they played well. And they had a lot of energy, and they got a lot of pucks on the net.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bolts didn't. And especially in that second period, just were incredibly flat. And that was a devastating goal to the Canadians.
That takes all the air out of the tires.
Yeah. And they had just worked their ass off for 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And to let that happen with that much time left in the period, like you were a second away from walking into the third period 1-1. I mean, after dropping a game in the fashion that you did before, it's heartbreaking for Habs fans to watch that happen. And it was such a close play. The defender was all over Coleman. He was inches away from batting that puck away, and Coleman still found a way to put it in the back of the net. So you can get 26, 28 shots on goal, but nobody was going to guess that was going to happen anyways. You just get lucky. So that's where having a goaltender like Vasilevsky comes into play, because he gives you opportunities to stay in the game even when you aren't performing. And that's just huge. And I mean, I don't know who else we would have in the net that would be able to do that for us. Vasy's not in net for us this game. We do not win this game, hands down. We let a couple in, and then we start losing it. We just start losing our minds. We're not playing at the same pace. You get desperate. These opportunities don't happen without Vasy being back there. So period 3 comes. Coleman immediately also has a chance, and right from the slot, doesn't really get his full stick on it. The puck goes wide, but they came out swinging on both sides of the puck, defensive and offensive. Like you said earlier, when that puck went in, the ice tilted immediately back into the Bolts' favor. All the wind was out of the sails for the first few minutes of the third period with Montreal. I mean, as a coach, I don't know what you say in the locker room after that goal goes in, right as you're going into the locker room for the third period. So, I mean, the Bolts needed to capitalize on it, and they came out strong as hell in third. After about 5 or 6 minutes, the shots were up to 30-19, so they were gaining ground again. And Coleman, right at that 19th shot, had another chance on Price, and Price just flashed leather and completely snagged it with his mitt, and just robbed another chance. So Coleman could have had 3 this game, but he had 1, and it was the one that we all wanted to watch at the end of the day. It is going to be the best goal of the playoffs. I don't know how you top that. It was the best goal of the playoffs last year, next to points overtime winner, after the ridiculous 5 overtime game. So, I mean, Price bails them out again, and that keeps it 2-1. Point again with the two-way play tonight. It was more noticeable towards the end of the game once all of the lines got rolling. But Toffoli had an odd man rush. Point just put the jets on and pressured him as much as possible, got his stick there, and Toffoli wasn't able to rip off a shot that was effective at all. And Point keeps up that two-way play that we I mean, I didn't really notice it until about halfway through the regular season, and now it's just so refined. That is 100% part of his skill set now. It's not by chance. The Toffoli, Suzuki, Caulfield line played a lot better defense this period as well, because they're still getting paired up with the top line of Pally, Point, and Kucherov. They played much better defense. They weren't allowing the chances that they were allowing in game one. So they were doing it on both sides of the net. Something I did notice, Hedman's ability to quarterback the defense the way that he quarterbacks the power play, just on five on five is amazing. He was standing to Vasy's right side and Ruda was on the left while the Canadians were playing on the boards behind the net. And Hedman kind of looked around a little bit and then shoved Ruda with his stick, like pushed him towards the boards to put him in the position where he was then able to intercept the pass. And then we got an immediate counterattack off of it. So Hedman's noticing things that other players aren't even noticing in other people's positions. He literally just took his stick and went, boop, just poked him on his ass and pushed him in the right direction. And Ruda was able to make a play immediately. And it was just one of those fleeting things that I saw. And I was like, oh, I was like, that's Norris caliber defense. You know, he is all over the ice mentally. He's not just zoned in on what he's got going on. He's seeing everything on the ice better than anyone else is. Ruda was standing in front of the play and didn't even take the opportunity to put himself in that position until Hedman poked him and just pushed him in the right direction. So it worked. And then Chernak on that rush put one off Tyler Johnson's skate in front of the net, and it almost trickled in for a goal. So, I mean, again, we wouldn't have that opportunity without somebody stepping up in a big time spot. And then final five, this was the Palat goal. There were a couple things I noticed on this. So I don't know if Edmondson, who was coming around the net, heard somebody call for the puck, but I'm going to draw this up too. And then, so Edmondson's coming around the net on Price's left side. So he's working up towards the blue line. He doesn't look behind him, but he just plays the reverse back. So Edmondson down here is coming up this way. He plays the puck back. Palat is screaming down into this corner here. And if you're listening on Spotify, or an audio, I'm drawing on the whiteboard. I'll do my best to describe what I'm doing. But Palat is screaming towards the boards to the right of Price. And Price is looking to his left at Edmondson. So the D-man or the forward, whoever was supposed to get on Price or on Palat, is 5-6 steps behind him. Not even close. Edmondson doesn't even turn around to play the reverse because Edmondson's heading in the opposite direction. Palat meets the puck right here, right at the right post, and just plays it in off of Price's skate into the back of the net. This dude is nowhere to be found. So Edmondson, I don't know if he heard something, because usually when you play a reverse like that, you're like behind, or like Eddie behind, or something like that. For him to know that you're there, it's just no look, pass it back on a reverse. Edmondson's looking up the ice. He can see that the Lightning haven't cleared the zone yet. So he knows that Palat is in that vicinity somewhere and still plays the puck back that way. So I think Edmondson heard somebody call for that puck, or I don't know what happened, but he decided to play it back and Palat scores off of it. Now, it's not Edmondson's fault, although he was the catalyst there. Price was so lackadaisical in his effort. He was standing shoulders down, looking over his shoulder at Edmondson. When he played that puck back, he didn't even get into a set position. until he realized that Palat was standing right there. He kind of just drifted over to his right and looked, and then tried to get down to make the save. And he ends up taking a puck off the skate into the back of the net. Price, when you watch Vasy with plays behind the net, he's still, hands up in the butterfly position until that puck is pushed up the ice. Because you never know what's going to happen, especially when your D-men aren't the only ones in your zone. If you still have attackers floating around your zone, you don't know if that puck's going to take a bad bounce. You don't know if somebody's going to make a stupid play. You have to be ready for that. And Price, you don't see that out of him very often. And those are the chances that the Lightning need to take advantage of when they're not playing a full 60 like that. And Vasy is the only reason why they're still in the game. But that was the dagger. When you go up 3-1, under 5 minutes left on a goal like that, and the last 2 goals that the Lightning score really shouldn't even be goals to begin with, what do? You're looking at your coach, you're looking at the whiteboard, you're like, we've outshot them. At that point, the shots were doubled. It was like 39-19 or something like that, the shot count. You've doubled the shots. You've spent the majority of the game in the Tampa Bay zone, and you can't get it done. And you watch goals like this go in, it just has to be so deflating. Were you still in the bar for that goal? In the corner?
No, I left.
Oh no! I wanted to hear the reaction out of the people at the bar.
I was leaving at the second interview. I had it on my phone.
At that point, I mean, the full 60 stuff, I mean, they played a full 20. It was in the third, though. Like, after that goal, Cirelli started flying around, too. He took a huge chunk out of Anderson right at the blue line in the Tampa defensive zone. And, I mean, the puck was there, but, I mean, he took his liberties and went at him. So they're still playing hard hockey. Even, taking the wind out of the Canadian sails, they're like, okay, there's blood in the water. So they're going straight at it. 2 minutes left. Price goes to the bench. Vasy makes a huge blocker save on a shot from the blue line. It was absolutely ripped. Goes down to 1 minute. Cirelli gets the puck and backhands it from behind Vasy and just misses the empty netted goal by like a couple inches. Dog, dude, so funny. And then 40 seconds left right after that shot. Habs use their timeout, try to draw something up on the whiteboard because it came down for icing. So they're taking the face off in the Tampa zone. Vasy makes another save with 25 seconds left. And the game was over at 45 as it is. When they took that timeout, that wasn't going to refresh anything. They're down 2 goals. Price has been out of net for a minute and some change now. Vasilevskiy is just lights out, wide-eyed, lights out. He has been the whole game. You're not going to get 2 by him in 45 seconds. So game ends right as the buzzer's about to go. Deneau takes a run at Sergachev on the boards way after the puck had been cleared out of the zone, causes a huge scrum. Corey Perry gets into the mix of it, of course, throwing punches at Hedman well after the buzzer has gone. But the Bolts did a good job of just kind of defending themselves without instigating any further, waving to the crowd and taking the second game. Go to the locker room, you're up 2-0 in the series. There's no reason for you to get involved with antics like that. And for the Canadians to show that kind of fight after the buzzer was confusing for me. Where was that the whole game? Because in game 1, they were always involved with extracurriculars. After the whistle, behind the play, there was always something going on. Kucherov and Perry got into it in the third period behind the play too. Nothing was called, nothing malicious, but they were going at it the whole game. But other than that, I mean, the tenacity that you saw out of the Canadians in game 1 wasn't there at all. There were no extracurriculars that warranted anybody going to the box, except for there was the 4-on-4 with Chernak, and I don't remember the Habs player, but that was really the only penalties that were handed out for extracurricular activities. So, I mean, overall, I'm not really happy with how the Lightning played. I don't know if that's just because our standards are so high with what they've been able to accomplish and how they usually run around the ice. Um, they got to clean it up a little bit. They got to get more chances and they got to go full 60. That's going to be the theme for the rest of the series. It's full 60.
So I noticed something that was not as good as usual from the Lightning. And one thing I think the Lightning are better than anybody at is moving up the ice quickly, getting through the neutral zone with one pass, blue line to blue line and out into the zone. And none of those passes, we couldn't hit tape on any of our passes through the neutral zone. It was like blue line to, the defense or to Price. It was nothing was hitting tape. We couldn't make it through the neutral zone. And that's got to change.
Yeah, when the pucks were dumped in, they were chased, but they weren't recovered. It allowed us to rotate lines quickly. There weren't, like in game one, they would have the ticker up on the score box tracking everybody's time for their shifts. And there were multiple shifts where people were going over a minute, 32 minutes. I think I saw 1 or 2 minute 30 shifts tonight. And I think that might've had something to do with it, those missed passes. But on the reverse side of that, the Canadians through the neutral zone were so swift and crisp.
Yeah.
They had no issues skating through the middle of the ice to get set up in the offensive zone. It was night and day compared to game one.
There was a long shift. That was really good. They fought hard was when Tyler Johnson had a shot block.
Right off the knee.
Yeah, and he was hurt for 50 seconds on the ice.
Yeah.
Kept his body right in front of the net the whole time. Was limping around. Everybody on the ice with him.
They looked gassed. And that was really the only one that I noticed that I was like, oh shit, we're tired. And it stuck out because it wasn't really like that all game. They did a great job of running all 4 lines. I do think Joseph was not on the stat sheet, but he really stepped up in the spot where he needed to. Colton kind of disappeared a little bit this game. I don't know if that was because he didn't have his bounce with Johnson like they had with that chemistry that they've been able to build throughout the playoffs. So I don't know if that was a change up. Maybe he wasn't used to playing center as much because he's been playing on, I think, the left wing mostly. But Matthew came in and skated and skated and skated. He was fast on the puck. You texted me halfway through the game talking about how fast Joseph looked. So I noticed it after that. I was like, holy shit, this kid is flying right now. He was laying body too. I forget how big he is. Because when you see him in like his pictures where he's wearing a suit and stuff, you don't really notice how large he is until he gets on the ice. He's tall, he's over 6 foot, and he's fast. And you feel those checks because he does it all game. So he was laying the body throughout all of his shifts. He was all over the ice. And I think, again, going back to rotating the lines out, that gives people a chance to take a breath, especially when you have a fierce attack like that. Third line looked good. They produced another goal with the Coleman one and the Gaudreau pass to Coleman, which was perfect. Gaudreau made a little move entering the zone, and that's what opened up space for that insane Coleman goal. So still good things coming from the third line. But overall, like you said, it was a little lethargic. So, going into Montreal, my prediction initially was we were going to drop this game tonight. I was just trying to be unbiased. If I'm not being biased, I said we were going to sweep them as it is. So, 2-0. The one thing I loved seeing at the end of the game was when they put up the schedule for the rest of the series and game 5 says, if necessary. I love that. After 2 games and that game 5 says, if necessary, that, like, I got butterflies. It was weird. Small stuff like that, just hinting at the fact that we might get a sweep. Whew. But I mean, go up 2-0 in the Stanley Cup Finals, and I don't know what's more deflating for the Canadians, and you can give me your opinion on this too. Your game one performance of being absolutely just bombarded with heavy rushes, you can look at the box score and say, this is why we lost. Then you go game two and you do everything right. And Vasy just absolutely stands on his head and bails the Lightning out the entire game. And then we get two very weird opportunities between the Coleman goal and the Palat goal to go 3-1 in the game. Which is more deflating for you?
Definitely this game. It's like when you play bad, it's easy to be like, this is what we did wrong. This is how we fix it. It's our fault. Let's go do it. I think if you play good, and they know they just played a mediocre Lightning team. Like, they know that for 40 minutes they were playing 60%. So when you're playing well and the other team's not, and you can't get it in the back of the net, it's a hard one to deal with.
Yeah. And if it's not the oppressive offensive and defensive rush of the Lightning, it's Vasy. Like, and it's funny because sometimes those things link up and you'll get 40 shots on goal and still lose 5-1. And Vasy and the forward and defensive lines just mesh and play an outstanding game. But that's usually not what happens. It's usually one or the other. Like, Vasy doesn't have a chance to show what he has. He has flashes here and there, but because of how oppressive the Lightning can be on puck, it doesn't allow you to get the chances that they had tonight. So they needed to go into this game with that mindset, and they did, and they didn't have it. And I agree with you. I think that's more deflating. And then you look back on both games and how different they were from both sides of the puck, and you say, what are we supposed to do? Like, where do you go from here to try to rectify? Do you just maintain the mindset that you had going into game two? Probably. I think that's the only way that you can really psychologically deal with that, because if I was in the Habs situation right now, I'm looking back on the last two games going, how did we not at least pull the last one out of our ass? I mean, and to only get one goal, that's tough. Now what? They have 2 goals in 2 games, and the Lightning have 8. So with a mediocre performance today, or 8 or 7? No, 8. Yeah, because 5 and 3. So they had more production from the Toffoli, Caulfield, Suzuki line, but I just think maybe, you hit the hard reset button. You're going home. You're going to be in Montreal. I think once they get off the ice in that third period after that loss, and then they see the news that they're not going to have 10,000 people in the stands, like they may have thought they were going into the game, they're going home to 3,500 people. So I think home ice still has a factor. I think fans bring a big piece of that factor. But I don't see the Canadians changing a whole lot of what they did in game 2 compared to game 3. I think they go in with the same mindset.
Yeah. So I have one more thing to add, and it's a prediction. I think that Braden Point scored. Okay, so Braden Point, again, didn't find the back of the net. 3 games in a row now.
Yeah.
But the power play was, we didn't capitalize on it, but it was looking good. Like Kucherov was getting Kucherov was getting his shots in, and then Kucherov was getting. He even had, his like signature fake shot past the point with the one time.
No look, yeah.
So he had a couple of those passes into the slot, and I just feel like Point's gonna have a 2-goal game.
I mean, he's due.
Yeah,
he's due. Go 3 games without a goal. I mean, they've won all 3. I'm sure that his competitive mindset is still okay. We won. I'm sure he's not going to the locker room going, "Fuck, I didn't produce tonight." I'm sure he had glimpses of that during the game, but getting the result is still the optimal situation. So, but yes, he is 100% due. I think he gets 2. Same thing. Killer's probably going to be back for game 3, I'd imagine, because he's just listed as day to day. And I don't think he even took warm-ups today. So that'll be a telling sign. If we see him on the Bolts Instagram in practice, or if we see something on Twitter of them experimenting with lines, like maybe he has a lessened role. But I also don't think they want to rush him back. It's definitely, it's not a muscle thing. I mean, he took a hard shot off of his lower leg. So that's not something that necessarily, if you rush back, would be detrimental long-term unless he has some kind of structural damage. But being listed as day-to-day, I don't think the structural damage is there. If they were going to pull him for the series, they would have pulled him for the series. Unless they want to play mind games, which is totally fine with me. But I think if he's out there game 3, Point notches 2 pretty easily, especially on the power play. The Canadians are going to be desperate to crawl their way back into this series after 2 deflating losses in 2 completely different ways. They're going to be coming out full head of steam, and it shows at the end of the game. That's the attitude that they're going to have for the rest of the series now. They have to. If they want any hope of crawling their way back in, they're going to need to just pick on players. So I think Point is definitely due. I also think that I still think Colton's going to notch 1 or 2 this series. I think he has to. His chances in game 1 were too big for him to not have those again. And maybe Killer coming back and Johnson getting dropped back to the 4th line is going to be good for him. It's somebody who matches his ability. They're very, very similar in their style of play. So I think it's kind of like a 2-headed monster type thing between the 2 of them. And then Maroon just doing what he does, controlling the puck on the boards and giving them opportunities and space to work with. I think that's going to change it a lot. So I'm expecting Point to score at least 1 goal. If he scores 1 early, he's getting 2. And I think Colton's going to notch 1 in the next 2 games for sure. So do you have a score prediction after the 2 weird games that we've seen so far?
I'm going to go with 4-3.
4-3 Bolts? Or
No, 4.
Montreal?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a possibility. And we've kind of seen a little bit of everything already in 2 games. So I guess nothing will surprise me at this point. If I want to be realistic, yeah, I'm right there with you. If Montreal wins, it's going to be high scoring. It's not going to be a 1-0 or a 2-0, and they're not going to blow them out. It's either going to be a 1-0 or it's going to be, like you said, like a 4-3 or a 5-4 or something like that, or a 6-4 with a late empty net goal. But honestly, if Killorn's back in the lineup, I still think the Lightning take this game. If they take game 3, the series is over. And I know it's really bad luck to say that, but if they take game 3, this Tampa Bay team does not get reverse swept. It doesn't happen.
No way, not a chance.
Not a chance.
Oh, that reminds me of the Modine interview. There's a Modine interview on NBCSN game, and they asked him what he thought about Tampa, And then they said, what's your prediction? How many games? And he said, I can't tell you how many games. All I know is this Tampa team can't be beat in a series.
Yeah.
He's like, there's no, they're too good to lose.
Yeah. Especially going up 2-0. And I know it was before the game. But going up 2-0, I think that kind of locks it. You know, there's no way that they lose 4 in a row now. Or they win, or they, you know, they don't go 3-1 on the losing side of this series. You know, if they drop one on game 3, I don't see them losing another one. They haven't lost 2 games in a row in the playoffs going back to last season. So, and I noticed about halfway through the game that I was wearing the 2019 playoffs t-shirt, and I got really nervous. I got really nervous that I'm very superstitious, and I was like, oh shit, halfway through the game, you know, the Bolts are getting outshot 20 something to 9, and I almost took the shirt off, and I didn't do it because it's just, you got to kind of roll with it at that point. So I know that the shirt isn't bad luck now, but it is very nerve-wracking to know that, I know it's not the same squad, but shit happens in the playoffs that you don't expect to happen. So I still think that they come out, I mean, at the least now it's 4-1. They don't get the sweep, it's 4-1. So
Yeah.
I didn't like what we saw, but I don't think they come out and do the same thing. And the Bolts don't lose 2 in a row. So at this point in the series, up 2-0, and they don't lose 2 in a row. I mean, what's the math on that? They win the series, right?
Yeah, it could
lose
possibly
tomorrow, win, lose, win. Yeah, it's 4-2. So they don't lose 2 in a row. The series is done. We got the cup. Knock on wood, of course. So, well, thank you again. I'll do our social tags one more time. Twitter, LHF_pod. We have 6 platforms that this is on now. I will link them in the YouTube description. My Medium page is austinjandrews.medium.com. I will be having a game recap coming out tomorrow at some point typed up on there. I did one for the last game and one for the series preview, so I'll just keep that going. I've gotten good reception so far, so not so bad. And I think that's pretty much it, man. Oh, and our Gmail, lowhangingfruitpod@gmail.com. Just shoot us something. So
if you want to, I'm gonna fix my microphones.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
You want to Amazon me one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
I'm gonna get a microphone. I listened to the playback of the first recap, and it wasn't terrible, but there was some
Yeah, I mean, it's over Zoom too, so that is shoddy sometimes, but it's been good so far. Shout out to Zoom. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, man. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.